different bits that I've been asked by various governors. So it may feel a little bit disjointed because I'm going to come on to various bits across the organisation that you may be interested in. Really happy to take questions as ever. I think what I'll do is I'll start with winter. So it has been a really busy winter. We've seen lots more patients than we did previously this time last year. But I've got some really good news to give you in relation to Kettering's performance and also Northampton's performance, because you can't really see one without the other. They do impact on one another. So Kettering in June 2025 was 16th out of 32 acute trusts in terms of ambulance handover times. So that means the times that ambulances have to wait to hand over patients. Since then, we've done lots of work at Kettering and Northampton to improve the ambulance handover times. This is important because of safety, because every ambulance we've got that's waiting to drop somebody off isn't on the road looking after other patients, and ambulance conveyances have increased over the last year rather than decreased. But anyway, Kettering has managed consistently now for the last 6 months to be in the top 5 performers in the Midlands. It's consistently delivering 95%. The teams have all worked really hard to get that to be something that we take really seriously. If you're on call, often Kettering isn't the site that you have to worry about. It's sometimes it's often Northampton on certain days, but both sites have done really well. Northampton is also in a much better position than what it was last year in terms of hours. So this is hours that we've given back to the ambulance crews. In December, we gave back 4,400 hours. So there was 4,400 lost hours in December of the previous year that they gained this year. That's a phenomenal achievement, and it's 6 crews a day. And, you know, we need to be really proud of ourselves for the work that we've done there. I think there's still some persistent problems. We've got problems with 12-hour waits in both departments, although we have seen improvements. 4-hour performance, so patients who are waiting, who are probably not going to be admitted, that has got a bit better over the both of the hospital sites, and Kettering routinely meets the standards. But we do know that we've got overcrowding in both A&Es, and the last month in particular has been particularly bad for walk-in patients who are sitting in the A&E at Kettering and at Northampton waiting to see one of our members of staff. And most of you who know Kettering well will know that we're pretty confined in terms of space. In Northampton, we've managed to get some additional money to build a kind of new unit on the front of the space, which has meant that we've got a bit more waiting area now. We haven't got that opportunity as yet at Kettering. However, we do think we're going to be able to get some money from central government to build an extension. It will be a porter cabin type arrangement for a new UTC at the Kettering site. There is quite a bit of money coming out for UTC development, which is how we've managed to develop the Northampton site. So we're going to be progressing that over the next few months, and I'll let you know how we get on with that, because I'm keen to use the winter months to do the improvements that we need to try and drive down some consistent better performance again for next year. And although I'm talking in performance targets, what I want us to remember is this is about safety. So patients who are waiting in departments for over 12 hours, it's not safe, it's not good care, it's poor practice for patients, and it usually means a longer length of stay. So whilst I use the performance metrics, it isn't about performance for me, it's also about safety of our patients in the hospitals. I'll move on to, if you have any questions, I'll take them at the end if that's okay, because I've got quite a bit to get through. So there was a question about the AMOS report for National Maternity and Neonatal the National Maternity and Neonatal Investigation, which obviously highlights lots of pressures across maternity and neonatal services. We obviously take it really seriously, our duty to patients who are having maternity care at Kettering and at Northampton. There was specific questions about offering of postmortems following stillbirths, and I've had it confirmed to me that we are not concerned about the practice. This is a standard practice, and it is happening within our hospitals, and we report strong compliance of offering and signposting for all services. Somebody asked a question about planning permission for both Rockingham and the multi-storey parking. And I'm really pleased to confirm that we received planning permission for both schemes last week. So that's new news. The multi-storey car park will open from 2028. Well, it might be 2027, but I want to give you the worst case scenario rather than the best case scenario. So work will begin this summer. We have to start in the summer. And then we will then knock down the old car park and start kind of clearing the ground for the new hospital programme to start when the money is released in the late 2020s or early 2030s. But that work is proceeding at pace, and Rockingham as well is now going to be starting in the summer. I haven't got an open date for Rockingham, but it's probably around the same time, 2027, 2028. I was asked a question about the shuttle bus, which is a bus between Robinson Way and the site for staff who park off-site. We had a lease that expired in December. We didn't renew the lease because we thought it would, well, we know that it would be cheaper to buy our own bus. So we've bought a bus and we're waiting for it to be delivered. Now, this is coming from NHS Fleet and it's being custom made by Ford. And we are attempting to get a delivery date from NHS Fleet, but it's proving quite difficult. We were expecting it to arrive in February and it's now March. However, we are communicating with the staff and we're trying to inform everybody of progress. I think the delivery will be probably late spring or early summer now, because it has been delayed. We also had a question about wheelchair access. I'm really pleased to confirm that this has got a lot better on the site. So support's improved. We had 100 outpatients and visitors assisted last month in comparison to none in the previous year's data. We've got some new wheelchairs which have been made available on both sites from February the 16th, and we're also increasing the number over the next couple of months as well. We've got a voluntary assist programme now that's been funded by the charity, and we're trying to use both indoor buggies and outside, like wheelchair assist for upstairs appointments as well across both sites. The indoor buggy is actually at Northampton rather than at Kettering. I also had a question about recycling things like crutches. So this has been brought up by the governors before. I'm really pleased again to say that we've made some progress on this. So we've got some guidelines that have been developed for decontamination and reusing walking aids, and we've sent that to the manufacturer, which is a company called Millbook. Once they've reviewed it, we're going to pilot this with elective orthopaedic surgery patients as soon as possible. So by the time we have our next governors meeting, I should be able to give you some feedback from that pilot. But thank you very much to whoever in the governors team suggested it, because we have taken it forward and we are going to do it. I think those were all the questions, but let me just have a quick look. Yes, I've covered all of the questions that I was asked to cover prior to the meeting. Really happy to take questions on any of the topics that I have highlighted.
Thank you very much, Laura. Rashmi, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is relevant or not, but given we're talking about, delays and all that, some of the outpatient appointments that has been really having people an impact because of whether availability of professionals or clinics. And I don't know whether anything can be done. I mean, I don't know whether I can bring my own personal situation, because I was supposed to have one of my appointment in January. I was supposed to have regularly every 3 months, and it's not even coming through till now. So I'm on to do with my ear because I got perforated ears, and if I don't have my ear appointment, it does have an impact. So I just don't know whether it's any relevant, but anything for the outpatient appointment.
Yeah, so I probably should have mentioned that we're currently doing what's called a sprint across the NHS. Some of you will have read about this in the press. We've been given some additional funding for the month of March to put on quite a lot more outpatient capacity and also surgical capacity. And it's to deliver some more elective capacity across the organisation, so people having procedures, but also outpatients. It is predominantly focused on new outpatients, i.e. patients that have been waiting for their first appointment, rather than for follow-up patients. And Rashmi, you would be in the follow-up camp. We do have some specialties where we've got gaps. However, over the last year, those gaps have been minimised in most specialties. We do have one particular specialty I'm worried about at the moment, and that's ENT, which would be the ears. But things like skin, which I was really worried about a year ago in terms of being able to support the staff because we couldn't get dermatology team workers to come to work here. I'm less worried about it now because we've managed to recruit, because we've done a reshuffle of how we run those services. But there will always be, I think, for these two hospitals, some areas where there are problems in recruitment and somebody leaves and we can't replace them, and it becomes a bit more tricky. Happy to take comments about specific clinics, but I am aware that there is an issue in ENT, and I'm sorry that your appointment has been delayed. Jane.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Great news about the wheelchairs. In a recent Rapid Improvement Week that we did at Kettering, our porters did raise concerns about the fact that they spend an awful lot of time trying to find wheelchairs, which impacts on their ability to move our patients. But one of the things that they raised is they're accountable for the wheelchairs, but they don't have a budget for them if they become unusable. So if part of it becomes beyond economical repair. So have we put in a replacement program so that the wheelchairs that become necessary to be decommissioned are replaced or fixed? So that's the only thing I'm worried about.
I don't think I can say to you here, oh yeah, we definitely have, but what I can say is we probably need to. So let me have a conversation with Rob as Director of Estates about how we can manage those wheelchairs. We've got quite a lot of new wheelchairs which are on site, so you'd hope that this wouldn't be a problem until a few years' time, but you never know. So I agree that we do need to look at this in the whole. I'd prefer wheelchairs to be part of the capital plan because it's a different pot of money. And if you can buy them in bulk, that makes a difference, which is what we've done here, because you can put it in your capital plan, and we've got a little bit more flexibility in the capital plan than we do in our revenue position, because the finances of the organisation, as per the February meeting, are not in the best health.
Yeah, thank you, Laura.
David? Oh, sorry, Paul was next. Apologies.
Laura, thank you for the update on the car park. Obviously, that's going to help. In the discussions I've been having with Stephen Graves, the issue of park and ride has come up, because obviously we have a situation now that needs to be dealt with. Is there any discussion at all going on over park and ride?
I mean, I want to be honest, there isn't. Not at my level. It may be that there's a discussion within the team, within the estates and facilities team, that's happening without my knowledge. But at the moment, I don't think we can afford to run a park and ride service. They're fairly expensive. I do recognise that parking is an issue at Kettering, and I myself don't park on site because I don't want to take a space from a patient or a member of staff. But I don't have a magic bullet here, apart from the fact that we are building this multi-story that will eventually help, but it's a couple of years away.
So is it possible that the park and ride could be farmed out if you haven't got a budget yourself?
We would have to pay for it. So I think the cost of it would inevitably mean that we may not be able to do it. My mind is now thinking perhaps as a solution with one of our current staff off-site parking places with our shuttle bus that we've just bought. But I think there might be some insurance issues because the way that you use it needs to be kind of clearly marked, because at the moment the shuttle's only for staff. But can I take that away, because I hadn't thought of it before, and I'll have a chat with the team about what we could potentially do or not do. and I'll come back to you perhaps at the next forum.
Sorry, is that on Park and Ride or is that on the staff?
That's on Park and Ride. So what I was
Great.
thinking there is,
Yeah,
we've got a shuttle bus that we use for staff.
yeah,
Could we not use it for patients?
yeah, yeah. Okay.
But we might only be able to use it for certain points of the day because the staff use it, and I think there's potentially issues with how you insure the bus. So I don't want to say to you, oh, I've got this great idea, we're definitely going to be able to do it, because like all great ideas, I need to go and talk to the people that would actually have to implement it.
Thank you. I'd be grateful if you could carry that discussion on. That'd be great.
Will
Thank
do.
you.
Thanks. David.
Yeah, a couple of things. Just picking up on Paul's point about the transport and the Park and Ride. Richard Cook did run a series of meetings with regards to transport to the site some couple of years ago now. A session that I used to attend. But I'm also aware that in parallel to that, there were local authority meetings covering the same issues. So I think there is some knowledge out there, and certainly in the local authority sessions that I attended, one of the things that struck me was that they were very narrow in their thinking as to the solutions. And when you look overseas at various options that are being employed, there are some quite interesting ideas. So I think just looking further afield for ideas might help. That's okay. But what I wanted to talk about primarily was one of the things that comes up time and time again is capacity and the volume of patients coming through the system. And one of the things that kind of bothers me at the moment is that in my discussions locally with GP practices and so forth, we're seeing the same thing at the local level. The GPs are being overwhelmed. You've got a situation whereby in the hospital, if my memory serves me correctly, the NHS changed their operating capacity from something like 75% up to 90 something percent. That's a very inefficient way of actually operating. But the thing that bothers me more than anything else is this volume of patients coming through the door. Why are we seeing, is anybody looking at why we have got this increase in sick individuals coming through? I was made aware this week that even the GP practices are being hit because their doctors are coming down with stuff. So I'm just curious as to what's going on here in a wider context. Yeah.
I mean, I think this is multifactorial, but my personal view, and it would probably be evidenced by the 10-year plan, is it's to do with the ageing population that the UK has. If you look at the sort of population curve, and there's some really nice graphs that you can get from the ONS about this. In 1950, the kind of population was like that, So it was like very young, with a small amount of people over the age of 65. It's now a sort of bulge like that. And that means that, the single biggest predictor of getting on well is older age. So it's you are much more likely over the age of 65 to be living with 2 or more conditions. And we have many more people living over 65 than we did 50 years ago, or even 20 years ago. So I think my personal view is this change of demographics, and until we in the NHS grapple with that and change how we approach that, we're not going to be able to see a reduction in sort of service users, because this is a fundamental change in the way that society is made up. And I'm not sure I have the answers to any of that, David, unfortunately.
David, I understand why.
Yes, I would just say that because part of your question is anybody looking at it? So as Laura rightly says, there was a structural issue here in terms of the aging demographic. Is anybody looking at it? Absolutely, they are. So this is, your point is about volume, and again, as Laura said, it's multifactorial, but it's a system issue. So I think if you break it down into hospital flow and volume, we are obviously accountable for hospital flow to make sure we've got the most efficient systems in place to get people through the hospital as swiftly as possible with the best care. The volume we can't control. So we have to work with our system partners in terms of how we can, if you like, educate the population on what the alternatives are. So it's not always the default position to come to A&E. There are other alternatives in terms of GPs, pharmacies, other medical centres, and we've got to get better at doing that. And that's going to require quite a considerable piece of work around process. So now that the ICB is kind of coming together, we've gone through the clustering exercise. We're now in a position to work collaboratively with the ICB, and this really is a significant priority that we're working on together to find and to work on solutions to provide patients with the best alternatives to going to A&E, not that A&E is the only alternative. I'm just conscious of time, Laura, so if you want to move on to the next question.
Jill was next.
Thank you, Laura. I wondered if it would be helpful to add to what you were saying about maternity services, because communication went out yesterday about the pause in KGH home births, and so governors may see that in the media. So would it be helpful for me just quickly describe why that happened and what the plan is? So there was a tragic situation in Manchester some time ago where a mother and her baby both died during a home birth. And at the coroner's inquest, the coroner issued a Prevention for Future Deaths letter, which made some suggestions as to some standards for home births. This was picked up by NHS England, who asked everybody to assess their home birth service against those standards. We don't meet all of those in Kettering, so we decided on the grounds of patient safety it would be helpful to pause the service and have a look at how we can improve and enhance it. So that's the situation we're at the moment, but it might be quite visible in the media soon. But the plan is to reopen home births. It isn't something that's going forever. In fact, it's a statutory duty for us to provide it. So I just thought it might be helpful for governors to know that.
Thank you, Jill. Right, I'm going to quickly race through the last 4 people. Julie?
Morning. Sorry. I got 2 things quickly. I went in for a procedure at the day surgery place on Monday. The letter I got didn't really tell me where to go, so I got dropped off at the main entrance, went in there, found out I was at the wrong bit and I should have been over near urology. There was no one on the front desk, so I couldn't get the buggy service, and I did actually struggle because you've got to go right out onto the main road and then up that steep hill, and I did struggle. So that was just one thing. The other thing was bloods. I know this comes up every time, but I got a message on Tuesday from my GP telling me to book a blood appointment at Broadleaf House in Corby. It said you can use online or phone. And I thought, well, when you phone, that's usually when it's urgent. And I didn't know if it was urgent or not. So I phoned up the GP because I couldn't get an appointment until April. And when I phoned my GP surgery to see if it was urgent, they says, oh, let me check and see what we've got. And they've booked me in for the 10th of March at the GP practice. So if they could do that, why didn't they book me in to start with? Have they started booking in at GP practices to take bloods now, or I don't know what's happening?
I mean, I wouldn't want to guess, Julie, but what would be very helpful is if we had more blood's being taken at GP practices. And I'm sorry you had such a long walk. We can look at the letters for people who are attending day surgery, because they should give you directions to the treatment centre. It's nowhere near the main hospital, as you know. So I'm sorry that both of those things happened. Right, I'm really conscious of time. I'm going to move on to Jane, then Peter, then Jane Smith.
Just trying to offer a solution for our car parking situation. We have a bus stop outside of our hospital on Rothwell Road. Okay, so perhaps there's something that we need to do as an organisation about publicising which buses and from where stop outside our organisation. But also at the bottom of the hill, we've got the Lidl car park. In the town centre, we've got car parks that are probably slightly cheaper than we are on site. And there's the Morrison's car park. So there are car parks locally that give about an hour and a half to 2 hours that actually aren't fully utilised. That maybe if we put those maps onto our website, it would help people who are able-bodied like myself to be able to walk from those car parks to on site rather than use the car parks, because I think it's very convenient, isn't it, that we can park where we need to be when actually a little bit of walking can do us an awful lot of good as well. So just a couple of suggestions, and if you like, I could pick that up with Susie and the comms team if that's easier.
Yeah, that would be great, Jane. In terms of using store car parks, normally they don't like it. So having had a conversation with us about this in a different era, because they want their car parks to be used by customers, because how they make the money isn't the car park, it's the custom. So we need to be careful about that. But yes, that would be great if you could pick up with Susie. Thank you. Peter, and then Jane, and then I'll hand back to Andrew.
Yeah, just quickly on car parking. I mean, it's great that we've got the planning permission through, but I'm yet to be convinced that the multi-storey car park will actually make a big difference to the parking problems we've got there. There's not an awful lot extra spaces, if I remember right. It's in the tens, it's not hundreds or anything, which I think is what we really need. And then just quickly on the using the shuttle bus, you need to be very careful on that, because we've got a lot of people who are not able-bodied, and I can see what is going to happen. You're going to have people sitting there with wheelchairs or needing extra assistance, and the bus driver's probably not going to be able to do it, and the bus probably isn't suitable for disabled access anyway. Okay, thanks.
Don't disagree. Thank you. Jane.
Yes, good morning, and thank you very much for your update, Laura. And I'm delighted to hear about ambulance handovers. That's excellent news. Jill has adhered to one of the things I was going to talk about. The report from Baroness Amos, very disturbing, even though it's an interim report. Lots of things, and you have answered some of the questions. But what concerns me is this whole idea that she states that she knows that several trusts are incentivised to claim that a child that's not stillborn is stillborn to avoid the cost of a coroner and post-mortem report. And I just want you to reassure us that is happening. And also regarding the very concerning news about home births, and last time could we have a meeting with the maternity, but as we've got the bosses here, I would like to know what is wrong with maternity and how many home births do we have. But the important thing is this incentivisation for hospital trusts. This is from Baroness Amos stating this as a fact. When babies are born, it's supposed to be one breath. It doesn't make a stillbirth then, but they're incentivised to actually put down stillbirths to avoid the cost of postmortems. Can you please reassure our mums in our community that this is not happening? Thank you.
So I'll state again, I have been given reassurance by the team that is responsible for the service that this is not happening. But what we will do as part of our reviews of all services is recheck it and check it again. So thank you for raising it. Really happy to have further conversations with governors and maternity services, and I was also going to suggest a session about phlebotomy and blood taking at some point in the future as well, but very happy to arrange that sort of thing. In terms of home births, there was 5 patients affected. It's a fairly small service. It's a pause whilst we get all of the training and all of those sorts of things sorted out across the county, and then we'll reopen the service. And we will let you know when that happens. I think the critical thing is we need to make sure that services are safe for babies and for mums, and that's why we did it. It would be more concerning if we didn't make difficult decisions like this, because then you might think, oh well, why aren't they making those kind of tricky decisions? But we know that maternity services across the country are not where they need to be. And we know that we've got further work to do at both Kettering and Northampton, and we'll always have further work to make sure that the services are as safe and effective for our patients as they can be. It's a really important service. Thank you. Right, I'm conscious of time. I will hand back to Andrew. Peter and Julie, I think your hands are legacy hands, so if you want to delete them, that would, or not delete them, put them down, that would be great.
Laura, thanks very much. Thanks for handling that, and thanks for the update at the beginning. It was good to get some really positive news around ambulance handovers, planning permission, the bus, recycling of crutches. That's well done, and to you and the team for making that happen.
There's lots going on.
Lots going on. That's very true. Very true. Right. If we can now move on to item 4, reports from governors on engagement activities. Simon, would you care to take this one, please?
I will do. Thank you.
We've got a bit of time to catch up, Simon. So
okay,
if we can just be conscious of that. I'm going to be
very brief. There are 16 reports in the pack which people can read, so I don't need to go into any detail on them at all. What I would say, though, from myself and the team at the hospital is thank you very much to the governors that have put reports in, because 16 is a lot, and it's clear that a lot of activities going on, which is wonderful. The issues most raised, not surprisingly, are parking, blood tests and transport. So which Laura has already referred to. I would just add one thing to what Laura said earlier on about blood testing. There is a lot going on in phlebotomy to continue to improve the process. So, for example, the website is being looked at to add clarity, for example, if you need to book an urgent test or a test for a child, because it's not that easy to navigate and find at the moment. So I know that's going on. So it is being managed on a day-to-day basis, but it's overwhelmed and struggling, but we already know. So I don't think I've got anything to add to that. Thank you.
Okay. Simon, thank you for that. And I just reiterate your comments, thanking the governors for sending in these reports. To get 16 reports is really good and shows the healthy state of our governance council. So I very much appreciate that. Simon, there's just one thing that I just want to check about. For these to be really useful, they need to be actionable. So I just ask you to either now or for subsequent meetings to highlight whether there are any actions that we need to pick up on as a result of the reports that governors have sent in. And then we can be clear where the action is, because all of this has got to be action oriented. There's no point doing it. So let's be clear about what the actions are, what the responses need to be, and we can make sure that we follow up with due diligence.
Okay.
Okay.
Point taken. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions from any governors on this? I can't see any. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to item 5, which is implications of the government's 10-year health plan for NHS Foundation Trust governors. So I'm going to ask Jane to help me out on this, but just to open it up, the 10-year plan, as you as governors will know, proposes the removal of governors' statutory powers, which will be enacted through the NHS bill. Which is expected to be published shortly. We don't know that, but we think it's going to be published shortly. A number of us have held initial meetings and forums with governors in January, and one in particular that Trevor co-facilitated. And we've also attended NHS providers seminars talking about the new course of action for governors. And that's helped us to understand the likely impacts of the changes. The situation I think we're in at the moment is that it's not absolutely clear exactly how the changes are going to be enacted, and that's why we're waiting for the publication of the bill. But I think what is clear is that there needs to be a lot of local involvement, and NHS England and others are encouraging us to get involved in this, so that we have a say in this, because obviously it's a very local requirement. So to that end, I think what would be really helpful is for the Governors Engagement Group to develop a task and finish kind of operation where we can identify new ways and perhaps more modern ways, more flexible ways in which the governors can have an input on the service that we provide locally, relationships with our local population and with our colleagues, and also obviously holding the non-execs to account. So Jane, I know you and I had a meeting recently on this, which was very helpful. Would you care to say a few words on where you think we are on this?
So I think from where I sit, and having looked at the documentation, and recently yesterday going on to a forum where I believe that we're going to be known as, or nationally be known as an alliance, excuse my throat. I think that one of the easiest things to do would be to commission the engagement group to actually sit down and find out what we want to keep, what we want to polish, or what we want or what we don't want to do. But I'm very keen in understanding from our governors and our stakeholder governors and wider actually how we want to design the future of Northamptonshire, because I think we need to involve Northampton as well as Kettering and perhaps look slightly wider. So I will need to hold some sessions, if we're commissioned to do so, to understand, to deliver, if you like, or share what I've been looking at and potential proposals of how we could work going forward, if that's helpful, and obviously co-design it going forward. And I can see Trevor's hands shot straight up.
Trevor. Can't see you, Trevor, but are you on mute? Oh, you are.
I was on mute, yes.
Yeah.
I failed that test. No, I think it's important that we, this has got to be something that works and really works. It's not just a case of saying this is going to be in place. So it does need to link up, not just with our community, but with our exec colleagues on how they are going to take this, and whatever is set up, into the organisation to change how we work, whether that's changing it from how the current governors work, but greater than that, how we do that wider patient and population engagement. In terms of the timetable, the interesting thing on the timetable of the bill was that before Christmas they were talking about it coming out in February. Now clearly we've missed that deadline. The bill is also the same bill that will bring to the end NHS England. Now that is timetabled to be enacted by the 1st of April 27. So the bill should be imminent. Needs to say there are other things going on at the moment that may be taking precedence. But somewhere in the very near future, we are going to see something coming through about this. And a different strand that we maybe need to be thinking about as well is that there is a bill at the moment talking about population health and how that is improved, and that's in the devolution bill. There's a bit of a read across here, so I think we just need to sort of not go too wide, but just think about who else needs to be involved in the conversation on how we engage with the population, and what, going back to David's point about the volumes coming through, can do to improve health inequalities and the wider population health at the same time as this engagement. But I don't want to spread it. I don't think we should go too wide on it, but I just think we should be cognizant of what else is going on.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Trevor. There's a number of things that we need to take into account here. Peter?
Yeah, thank you. I was at one of the sessions with NHS providers yesterday. In the discussion group I was in, there was a governor from Bristol who'd been discussing this with his local MP, who, would you believe, didn't actually know anything about it initially. But in fairness, he'd gone away and talked to the relevant people in NHSE, etc., and government, and his view was that it ain't going to happen in early this year with the bill. It's likely to be delayed, but I say that's just hearsay, but that was coming back from a Member of Parliament on it.
Okay, thanks for that, Peter. That's useful. Rashmi?
I mean, I don't know whether as a board level, going as an act coming in, but where the NHFT have configured and they re-register whether we have got any thoughts in that going in that way or that direction or not. Because if we have that kind of information also, we can part of the engagement group be aware where we're going. So I don't know whether Andrew, yourself, have got any thoughts, or you need to come back sometime. It's just that it'll be nice to know if there's a possibility, or some kind of thoughts given to that.
But I think that's for us to decide, Rashmi. I don't think there aren't any plans at the moment along those lines, but I think we're dealing with a fairly blank canvas at the moment. So if we think that's something we should explore, then we have the opportunity to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Just in terms of the governance engagement forum, Trevor, how does that operate? How often does it meet?
I think Jane might be better on how frequently it meets rather than myself.
All right, Jane?
Yes, we haven't had any meetings because I had some time off away from the organisation. So we would re-establish the meetings with this as a focal point. And I think we probably need to do them more frequently than we have been, because I think they were probably quarterly. But to get the impetus on this and the movement, and to have something established before something is enforced from above, then I think we need to establish them probably from later this month and meet regularly and go slightly wider as well.
Okay, are you happy to take that on, Jane?
If we're commissioned to do so, yes.
Presumably, in terms of commissioning to do so, we can decide on that. Do we need to go through any particular forum to do that? Richard May, guide us.
It's for this council to commission the group, so that's what you're asked to do this morning. Thank you.
Okay, so as a group, are we supportive of the proposal to commission the re-establishment of the governance engagement forum? We all happy with that? Thumbs up. Good. Okay. So Jane, you've got the go ahead to organise the meeting. I'll leave it to you to set the time on that. But I would encourage as many governors as possible to be involved. I think this is, although there isn't much direction from the centre at the moment, I think that's not necessarily a negative. It can be a positive, because it enables us to formulate proposals that work for us locally. And I think that's really important. So we have an opportunity to get ahead of the curve here. So if we can get this engagement group brought together, Jane, if you need any support in terms of, it might be worthwhile putting some terms of reference together. And if you need some support on that from the team, then just shout and we'll make sure that we provide that.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much.
Okay. Are we all happy to go ahead on that basis then? Yeah, good. Okay, that's positive. Thank you. Okay, if we can move on to item 6, the Meet the Governors Forum. Simon?
Again, just a short report. So far this year, we've had a session with Trevor on the 10-year plan, and we also had the comms director, Susie O'Neill, in at that meeting, giving us the very welcome news, in my opinion, that we now have an engagement, a comms resource dedicated to patient engagement, public engagement, which I think was something we much needed. We had another meeting in February with Damien Venkatasamy and Sarah Stansfield looking at the finances in some detail, so we were updated on that. In April, the next one, we will have yourself, Andrew, and Laura, I think, plus a session on procurement. So I think these sessions are really useful. And there's been a good deal of flex, so that if we needed to ask somebody to step in and talk and give us a high level update and so on, that's been made available, which I think I'm personally very grateful for. So I don't think I have anything to add to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And how do we set the agendas for these meetings, Simon?
We are asked as governors ahead of time who we would like to talk to, and we have a pre-meeting before each formal meeting, as it were, to pull out all the questions from governors. So there's plenty of plenty of time and opportunity for governors to raise issues, which we can put to the executives who come along, give them time to prepare.
Okay, great, thank you. Rashmi, and then David.
Yeah, one of the issues that we talk about the comms engagement strategy, and I think I'm not aware of we have received that, Simon, but I think one of that we really need to have that connection with the comms, especially if we're talking about this engagement as part of this, going forward and all that. So I think we really need to see what the strategy as current it is, or whether there is anything there, so shared with us, so that we can be aware where we're going, not just as a every day-to-day service, but also in terms of, representation and voice, perspective. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Can I answer to that? To speak to that? For
yeah, please.
Thank you, Rashmi. Yeah, that's a timely question, actually. It's very new. It's just been set up, so I think probably that Jane and I will now talk to Susie and the person concerned, whose name escapes me as usual, about what program they've got. So they've got a specific plan. Can we see what that is and share it and perhaps have some input? So we'll do that.
Yeah, good. I think it's important that governors understand the approach we have to comms. We talk about it a lot at board meetings, and Simon will testify to that, but we should make sure that the governors are appraised of it. So thank you for raising the question, Rashmi. David.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise an issue with regards to research. One of the research was one of the key topics that was put forward as justification for the group model with Northampton when it was first proposed in 2020. Since then, it's become a bit of a black hole as far as governors are concerned. Now, I did raise this some months ago, and I was asked if I could produce a list of questions that could be put and then answered in one of these Meet the Governors sessions. I produced those and sent them in and to a member of staff, and I haven't had any response at all from it. I'm just conscious of the fact that the way it was put forward is that it was a key component in actually raising the reputation of the hospitals and attracting high caliber people.
Yep, absolutely.
And the reason I raise it, something cropped up last week. It landed in my email box, and I was aware of a couple of research projects that I knew nothing about. So it's just, of course, need to raise the question because it has all manner of implications for the hospital, for staff, for patients, and we're completely unaware of what's going on.
Okay, well, it's an excellent question, David. Thank you. You're absolutely right. Research is a cornerstone of our strategic planning, and the relationship with NGH is extremely important. We do have a Professor Simon Gay, who sits on our board. I don't know whether you're online at the moment, Simon. If you are, perhaps you could just.
I'm here.
Would you mind saying a couple of words on
so
how we approach research?
Yeah. Well, I can talk more specifically about the requests that came through to me about confidentiality with regard to clinical research. And I did respond to those requests, explaining that my particular focus is pedagogical research. So pedagogical research focuses on education and training and is not clinically oriented. So as far as I was aware, the request went back asking exactly what it was that was desired to be the point of focus. Because if it's clinical research, then there are other colleagues that I can bring into that would be better placed to answer specific questions. More generally, of course, UHN is the University Hospitals Northamptonshire, and Kettering is a key part of that. And the U in all of that is the University of Leicester, and the relationship between the University of Leicester and each and every component of UHN and of UHL, incidentally, is really important to us. We have a College of Life Sciences. It's much broader than simply the medical school, which I head up. And the lifeblood of our College of Life Sciences and the lifeblood of the local health economy are absolutely intertwined. So I don't think there would be any problem with having someone come along to address the specific questions. The issue for us is knowing exactly what the questions being asked are about, so that we can make sure the people in the meeting or in the presentation are the ones who are best placed to give those answers. I'm happy to be a conduit for that, but as with all specialisms, the more you specialize, the more you know about less and less. And we need to make sure that the person you're talking to is the one who knows an awful lot about that specific thing, rather than someone who has a nodding acquaintance with it.
Perfect. Okay.
Can I just come quickly?
Yeah.
Would it be helpful if I sent Simon a copy of the questions that I originally had?
It would be very helpful.
Great way of shortcutting it, David. Yeah. If you can do that, we can get this moving, because I know from Simon's perspective, as he said, we really do want to talk about this. This is a very interesting area of our operation, so it's right that we talk about it, and we just need to make sure that understand where the interests of the governors are, so we can get the right people there to handle it. So thank you for the question, Richard. I think you may have a point relating to this to come in. So if I can bring you in now.
Thanks, Andrew. I just wanted to just clarify this. I want to assure that this is or was on the radar. There were some emails in response to Simon's request. Without going into detail here, ironically we thought there was possibly too much detail in the list of questions submitted. We need to pitch this appropriately for what information will be of value to governors. But again, happy with that action for David and Simon to liaise directly to determine to scope that session out. It's in the plan, so we will run with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Andrew, can I just come in on that briefly as well?
Yes, please.
Alice, sorry. Presumably we have involved, or we would involve our UHN head of research and development, because that seems a key person in this, that may be able to bring together the right level of questions that the governors might need to know. Is it AJ still? Yep. Yeah. Good.
Thank you, Alice. So Richard, May, can you just kind of triangulate that between AJ, Simon and David, so that we can just nail down on what it is that we need to do?
Yeah, we'll do. Thanks.
If that's a clear action. Thank you. Rashmi.
Yeah, talking about research, are we as a Leicester, LHI host, as a lead within the applied research, within the NORAC, I can't say the acronym and all that. What connection we have got? Because I understand we are, as sort of as a lead holding fund for them, and managing the fund for the this NORAC applied research ARC they call it, but I can't remember exactly how it is spelled, what connection we have, because I understand one of our board medical director, I think, is going to be part of this.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I can't answer that, but I know a man who can. Simon?
I know nothing of this at all, I'm afraid.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Sorry.
No worries. Okay, thank you.
Richard, can you get that as an action? We'll find out the answer to that, Rashmi, and put it in the minutes.
Yeah, it just purely, it's mainly because I sit on the community voices panel, part of this as a representative from Northampton on this one, and it's recently that they get this research about regarding community and all the different aspects in terms of engagement, and I know that as a LHI is going to be, as they're managing and holding the fund, what the the National Institute of NHI is providing that. So I just wondered.
Okay,
There is
interesting. Okay,
thank you.
We'll drill down on that and come back to you with an answer. Okay, thank you very much. Right, we now have to move on to the item 7, appointment and remuneration group recommendation. So I think I have to ask you to leave at this stage, Trevor. I don't know how we get you back in again. Do I text you or something? Somebody will text you to welcome you back. And if I can hand over to the lead governor, Simon.
Thank you. Well, the appointment and remuneration group met earlier this week for the purpose of addressing the extension of the term of office for Trevor, our vice chair, until April 27, primarily because of the changes that are going on with the way that trusts work and the 10-year plan. The meeting agreed that it was all round unanimously, I think, that this was a good thing to do. So I think probably, Richard, all we need to do now is formally say yes and record it in this meeting, unless anyone has any specific comments or questions.
I would just say, Simon, that I suppose I initiated this request. There's, as you've said, there's a lot going on, a lot of changes that we're working through. Trevor is a great support as far as I'm concerned in his role as vice chair, and he has corporate memory, which is extremely important. So I just felt that this was the wrong time to be losing such a valuable asset as Trevor. And although it's unusual, if we can agree to extend it for another year, extend his term of office for another year, I think it would be extremely beneficial for Kettering and Northampton.
Thank you, Andrew. I totally agree with you for exactly the same two reasons. Okay, Jane, you've got a hand up.
Just a caveat to that is to make sure that we have a robust succession plan, because obviously, as you alluded, that Trevor has a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information, the organisational memory that he has. So, that's the caveat. We have to make sure that we have a really robust succession plan so that there's an ample crossover, so that none of that knowledge, although we won't capture it all, is completely lost, if that makes sense.
An excellent point, Jane, and I can assure you it's uppermost in my thinking, and I have regular discussions with Richard May about this. Peter.
Yeah, it's just I unfortunately couldn't make the ARG meeting on Monday, I think it was. But just to say, that's excellent news, actually, that Trevor's staying on. He really is a great asset to the organisation, and he's extremely supportive to governors. I know that from personal experience, so it's fantastic news.
Good. Thank you for your support.
Yes, thank you. Okay, you can take that as read.
Great.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon.
Ask Trevor back in. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Richard May, can you ask him back in? Mainly because he's handling quite a lot of the next agenda items. It's quite important that he reappears. But as we wait for him to reappear, could we move to audit, Alice? Would you mind leading that part of the agenda, please?
Sorry, Andrew, I'm struggling to get my papers up at the moment. Is that the upward report?
Yes, so it's the board committee chairs and nominated governors on the board committee summaries. Sorry, I should make that.
No, that's absolutely fine. I suddenly thought you wanted to talk about other matters in the audit, which threw me for a second.
No.
We won't go there at the moment. All is well. All is well. Yes, sorry, I just intimated to Andrew that he was welcome to bring me in for questions if need be for the governors. I'm conscious there's not an audit committee report in the upward report. Just to reassure you, if anyone was wondering why that is, it's purely a matter of timings of when things went to the board, and at the time of the last board meeting we hadn't had an audit committee in that intervening period. We have recently, since that date, had an audit committee, so happy to provide any update that is useful to committee members on that. I think it would be fair to say there are a number of issues that the audit committee is keeping a close eye on, which were discussed at the meeting. The significant ones, I think, to flag are not necessarily new issues, but I'd want to reassure the governors that we are keeping close to them. Areas such as a number of outstanding internal audit report points. We had 3 executives come to meet with to report to the committee on those outstanding audit points and their suggested revisions. Because those points are so old, we've slightly revised some of them now to make them more relevant to the position we are now in going forwards. So whilst there is still work to be done there, the committee was comforted by the attendance of those execs that those are now going to get the focus they need to move forward. I think the other thing that would be relevant to flag to, you will get this report in the fullness of time, so feel free to ask more full questions at that point, would be that we spent some time on the new board assurance framework, which is the new way we look at strategic level risks for the organisation, which went to the board last time. This was the first time the audit committee had 2 different executives come to report on their risks. This time we spoke to the chief people officer and also to the chief financial officer and dealt with their risks on the BAF. So as you might imagine, 2 of the biggest areas, we tried to start with 2 of the areas where we have most exposure really, and that was a really useful conversation, and I think the committee members really felt that was a much better way to engage with the risks, to actually have the executives present in that discussion and report to us. So happy to take any questions on that or any other items that the committee might be looking at the moment. As I joked at the beginning of the section, the audit for this year is underway and currently is running as we would hope. It's very early days as yet, but all is well in terms of the planning and the pre-year end work, at least that we build up to before the April end of year. So happy to take any questions on that or anything else. I know I had a debrief with the relevant governors afterwards and they may have comments or observations.
Okay, thank you very much, Alice. Thanks for the update. Any questions or additions from what Alice has said from governors? Jane?
Yes, good morning, Alice. It's me again.
Hello.
I'm glad to hear the audit report's on schedule. Thank you very much. That's reassuring. What about departmental wastage? How are we doing on that? Thank you.
No dramatic change, I would say, to that. I think you're talking, Jane, about the report that I know I shared with you a couple of months back, which is the audit committee regularly receives what we call the financial governance report, which talks about sort of, I guess you might say, unplanned losses or unplanned stock losses, all sorts of things. It has a collection of various bits of information in there, and also about how we're doing in terms of our compliance with contracting law as applies to the NHS. There is a report in there that talks about stock losses, according to which department they have come from. We didn't note any significant issues coming out of that this time round. It continues to be something which is a regular item in that report. So I suppose the assurance for the governors would be it's regularly in that report now. It regularly therefore receives the committee's attention, and happy to take any more specific questions on that, Jane. But I must admit, stock losses, whilst we would love to get that to zero, it's a low enough level that I'm not concerned about it at the moment, I think would be a fair summary, but we continue to keep an eye on that.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Alice. David.
Sorry, I had problems with my mic. Yeah, it was a very interesting meeting. We had, as usual, we had a short session afterwards with Trevor, Alice and Jill. And I think there were a couple of things that we raised. One of them was the report from the comms director, on the engagement, the community engagement strategy, which came as a bit of a shock to the two governors attending. I thought it was quite interesting that this had been in progress, and yet none of the governors I've spoken to have had any discussions about this, really. And this is something that started off in actually 2020. The engagement group was the suggestion of Mabel Blades at the time. We then asked if, because there was some concern about communication between governors and the community because of some of the things that were going on around the new hospital plans and so forth, we actually asked that we could put together a workable strategy and operating procedure so that the governors could be more engaged without fear of stepping over the line, as it were. And we've been pushing for this for a long time. And then suddenly we get this report, verbal report, saying that this is all going on. And yet, you know, I and most of the governors I've spoken to were completely unaware of it. And I find that really quite disturbing in so many ways. And I think it calls into question how the governors actually operate and actually communicate with the organisation. So I think that caused a few raised eyebrows. I think the other thing that was discussed at some length was the overpayments. And again, this is something that's been dragging on forever.
This is the salary overpayments, David.
The salary overpayments, yeah. And we still don't have a definitive time for when this is going to be resolved. But one of the things that sort of bothers me about that even more is when you take that in line with things like maverick invoices and procurement issues and so forth, what we see is, choose my words carefully here, a lack of control in the management processes, shall we say. And some of the stuff, it's been going on year after year after year. And I hear lots of verbiage about plans to resolve things, but they just seem to be getting kicked down the road all the time.
Okay. Okay, David. So thank you for those 2 points, and we gauge your obvious frustration. Alice, do you want to pick up the overpayment one, and I'll come back on the community engagement?
Yeah, just briefly, if I can, Andrew. So just to be really clear, David, I wouldn't put I would share your frustration on salary overpayments. Wouldn't duck away from that at all. It's been a continual frustration for the committee, so totally share your frustration on that. We continue to do what we can to push for, I would say, an improvement in the position. We'll never get it to nil, unfortunately, but a significant improvement in the position would be our target. Absolutely agree. I wouldn't conflate that with the more general financial control. I'd be very keen to sort of rebut that, if you don't mind. I think we have in the last year or so, partly as a response, but not entirely, partly as a response to our financial position and needing to really make sure our financial controls are as tight as they need to be on spending. We have done a full review of things such as mavericks, transactions without a purchase order, etc., all of those sorts of things. And we're in a far better place than we have been for many years on all of those things, actually. And I say partly because of the financial position, but actually also partly, I think, because of Sarah Stansfield's leadership in coming in and really making sure those things are really well managed. And so I would want to note her input to that process. So I would totally agree about salary overpayments. It's a running issue that gives me great frustration, but I don't think we should necessarily broaden that. I think what's unique about salary overpayments is it's an overlap issue between two departments, between finance and HR, which causes an issue. It's also an area where our tech isn't up to speed, and so we're reliant on busy people to conduct manual processes, and it's just not happening as well as it should. Totally agree with you. The community engagement, I'll let Andrew respond, but I wonder whether this has been an audit action for some time, just to be clear. This isn't new. It's just that I don't think it's really been flagged to the governors in perhaps the way it ought to have been, but happy for Andrew to respond.
Yeah. First of all, I'd just reiterate Alice's points. And I know that we are working on, from a system point of view, a systemic solution to the salary overpayments. And excuse me, that's one of the benefits of working across the group with UHL and UHL. I know Will Moynihan is working on a more sustainable solution to this, because I know it has been around for many years. As far as the community engagement strategy, I think our mistake was that we probably didn't involve you early enough, or at least keep you updated in what we were doing. What I would do, David, is I'll take it away and I'll have a discussion with Susie about this and whether there are any lessons learned that we can take from it. I hope that you found it beneficial to get the update from her, though, nevertheless. Okay, I think that's all the questions for you, Alice. Trevor, are you back in the room now?
I am back in the room.
Ah, excellent.
Thank you.
Good. Would you like to pick up finance?
I'll pick up the finance report, and this report is from the January meeting. We have met subsequently, but I am aware that the governors also had that session with Damien and with Sarah. So I will concentrate on some key points here. So the financial, we had the month 9 financial position reported at the January meeting in February. We got the month 10. The big difference between the two in terms of our forecast outturn was that now that we know that we will not hit the plan, we have lost the final quarter of deficit funding, which is about 4.5 million. So therefore that even further worsens our position, and in terms of cash worsens it because we will be having to borrow the cash, whereas before the deficit funding came without actually an interest payment to be made on it, and that will be rolled into the following year. So I think that's an important point. There's on the report, and I know it's an NGH point, but I think it's worth noting at KGH, we approved going ahead with 33 beds being, I say built, there's buildings there, but it's converting empty space into a new ward, particularly for winter and decanter NGH, and that in terms of the total system volume of beds over winter will be an important additional facility next year. That won't be ready until late autumn, so that's for next year. And for me, one of the important points on this meeting was we had a report back on the emergency planning response, EPRR. We have not done well on this in the past. We're still not where we need to be, but there's significant improvement, and critically there for the last 8-9 months we've actually had a senior person taking responsibility for this. We're very good on the day-to-day responding to emergencies. It's the NHS all over. We're very good at getting the crisis dealt with. We're not so good in putting all the infrastructure around it and making sure we've got all that there, and we can, it's not just a tick in the box, but actually it's making sure the plans, the policies all work. And we really have to deal with that. In the past, and most of you know I've got a long pedigree in the NHS, this was bread and butter stuff. It fell off the agenda. It really came back on with post-COVID. That this is something that the NHS should be doing on an ongoing basis. So as I say, I'm very pleased to see that improvement. Not that we're where we need to be, but we have significantly improved from where we were, and it constantly moving forward. I'll draw a line under that.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Thanks for the update. And just to add to what Trevor said, our financial position is far from ideal. Far from ideal. We have a lot of work to do here. A lot of work has gone into it already, and the leadership that Sarah Stansfield is providing is excellent in this field. But of course, it's that finance does not just come down to the CFO. This is a responsibility of all of us around the board table to accept responsibility and to work collaboratively on sustainable solutions. We had a meeting with the region, with Dale Bywater, the regional director, and his colleagues last week before last, and a lot of time was spent on discussing finance and what our actions need to be. And we're not going to deal with this just by tweaking at the edges. This is not going to be something that will be improved just by doing what we've always have done, only slightly better. There will need to be strategic decisions made, and we will be working with our colleagues in the ICB on that. And of course, we will keep the governors well updated as we move through our plans. Trevor, I think you're also handling people.
Sorry, before I move on, Peter Blades has got his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Peter. Sorry, I missed you. Sorry.
Yes, it's Lindsay Alves and I, the nominated governors on the Finance and Investment Performance Committee, and we actually had a session with Trevor after the last one. I think the main concerns that Lindsay and I had is that yet again, the integrated performance report wasn't available. I mean, this seems to be an ongoing issue. The committee meeting dates were moved at one stage to give people more time to prepare the report. And then they changed the format of the report. They were going to use the federated data platform, and apparently that doesn't work as well as it was. So we just don't seem to be getting that integrated performance report. It's not available, and then when it does become available, we've not always got sight of it. It doesn't always get added to the minutes, and I know Trevor's going to try and make sure that retrospectively it does get added to the minutes. But it's a concern. I know Trevor says it's a concern at board level, but yes, quite why it's such a problem, I really don't know.
Okay, thank you for that, Peter. I can't answer why it wasn't available for the committees. But we'll certainly follow up on it. The IPR is obviously a key document, and it should be a management tool. And if you haven't got it available, then it doesn't help. So leave that with me. I will follow up with it. Thank you.
Sorry, Andrew, can I just come back on that before James?
Yeah, please.
Yes. So I've been in discussion with the other committee chairs as well as with Laura subsequently. And I haven't got the solutions at the moment. I just want to correct one of the things Peter just said. Peter, sorry, but the FDP is actually we haven't got it on FDP at the moment. The plan, not hope. I think I've just seen so many versions of this in the past. The reason why I use the word hope. The plan is that by putting off FDP, we will actually enable this to be more mechanised than it is at the moment. Too many manual interventions. In digging with fellow chairs, I've actually uncovered one or two things that I didn't know in terms of the problems we've got with the existing version, which we were told was going to be the answer. Some of the problems we've got are actually not of our own making. It was actually Microsoft changing the way that the platform we were using worked. So it's taken us back to having to do a lot more manual interventions to actually produce the report. It's not the answer. We need timely information with the committees. Hopefully we will come up with a form that's not as big as well going forward, because we do not need that much data. We need timely information that enables us to both monitor and take decisions. No, I'm definitely onto it, Andrew, and there will definitely be changes going on, but I have been in conversation, as I say, with Laura about this and with the fellow committee chairs. So we will certainly try and improve that situation.
Thanks. Good. Okay, that's reassuring. Thank you. And thanks for your question or your comment, Peter. Jane.
Yes, good morning, Trevor. Winter planning, you're talking about that. I know that for years the plan for winter was very late in the year, but last year you changed it to having the plan done by June, and you're saying things have improved since then. What things have improved, what are we learning, and what things didn't go so well? And I remember last year on a forum, a lot of the staff were complaining there wasn't enough of certain equipment, a portable something or other, I can't remember what, but they were claiming they didn't have enough. Is our financial situation impeding on the amount of stuff that we have available for the surge of winter? Are we more prepared than ever? Thank you.
Jane, I think Laura's probably better equipped to answer what has improved as a result of our earlier winter planning. Laura, can you take that one, please?
I think she's left the call, Andrew.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay.
Sorry, can
Trevor.
I just come back on part of it? I can't answer all of it. I think it's important that we have, one of the things we did last year was a very quick wash up after winter and didn't leave it till the summer, and that enabled some of that planning. Not everything has gone as we expected, and that's not just within the hospital, that is also external, but certain areas, you heard from Laura, some of those improvements around emergency care, those improvements happened through the winter. So I think that's an important point. We still had too many patients that we couldn't get out into beds. That was different across the county. So the two local authorities have different processes, which does not help the situation. And the timeliness of the support in some cases wasn't what we wanted, and we certainly will be taking that back. There is a large sum of money, millions, goes into what's called the Better Care Fund. This is across the country. Local authorities get that to fund certain things, and it is spent to support patients getting out or prevent them coming in, but it's whether or not that is the best use of that money. And certainly going forward, that is something that Sarah Noonan and her team will be taking up with the local authorities and the ICB in terms of how that's applied. And it's not just applied to say they've achieved a target, but it's reflective of the pressure that we see. So better, I think, Jane, in summary, certainly not good, and we can always learn lessons. I think at the end of the day, our staff were under huge amounts of pressure. I know Andrew and I went round the ED in Kettering recently, and some of the things I heard there were far more positive in terms of some of the processes, which is not just about how we deal with things when we have the rush, but actually how we deal with things instead when we have to put patients into corridor, who gets into the corridor, where their next step's going to be. So it's not just a case of what I would put maybe in the past was, I know it wasn't random, but it sounded more random than it was than we've got now. So if somebody's in a corridor, they're fit to be discharged, they're ready for discharge, they're going out. It's not the patients that are needing the most intense care. So I think we will definitely, we will come back on this once we've had that debrief after the winter, because I think that will be the most effective way to have that conversation.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for picking that up, Trevor. I mean, one of the reasons why the winter plan was done earlier for last year was because we commissioned a lessons learned paper that contributed to the actions that we needed to take. Jane will do the same thing this year. So we'll have that report written in good time, and I think that might be something we can share with the governors as well in terms of the key lessons from it. But I think it's fair to say, as Trevor said, that given the pressures that the hospital was under with resident doctor strikes, for example, at key times of the year, the flu epidemic, increasing UEC volumes, etc., there was definitely benefit from the actions that and the decisions that were taken as a result of the winter plan, but we've got more to do as ever.
Sorry, Andrew, there's one other point from what Jane asked, and I just wouldn't want it to go missed. I'm not aware, but we will certainly ask the question of any shortage of equipment due to financial controls. There may be shortage of equipment, but certainly I'm not aware of anything due to financial controls. I think that's important in terms of patient safety. And certainly if there's shortage of equipment, it's often about people not being raised. You heard about the wheelchairs earlier on. It's just about awareness, and when things do get escalated, things usually get responded to in a prompt and timely manner. But we definitely will ask the question again. I wouldn't want to say it didn't happen, but I'm not aware of any issues around that on that particular point.
Good. Thank you very much, Trevor. Do you want to carry on with your list of things?
Sorry, Andrew. Can I just interrupt? Sorry, I just wanted to.
Rashmi.
Yeah, No, I just need to leave. So sorry coming in. But you know, Trevor mentioned about Better Curve Fund, and one of the key priorities been the prevention within that we're talking. So I wonder how we, have that conversation, because it's quite important that some of the services and through adult social care that one of the my organization Support Novi Connect, and they have some funding, and that it has done really good some of the services that they provide, to prevent people get admitted in the hospital. So I wonder whether this is part of the discussion. You can whether you can influence so that it goes on and part of the prevention, because that's what one of the 10-year plan is, prevention, isn't it? From community to prevention. This is really we should be focusing on.
Absolutely, and as you know, it's part of one of the 3 shifts that features heavily in our planning. So yeah, I can reassure you that prevention is a major part of the planning, the strategy and the tactics going forward.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going.
Okay, thank you, Rashmi. Over to you, Trevor.
Very quickly on the people report, apologies from Denise. Hope she won't mind me saying that she's been urgently called in for grandmother or nanny duty, as she put it, due to her daughter giving birth sooner than planned. So yeah, so her apologies. Very quickly on the people report, I'll start with the last point on there, which actually links back to the finance. We've done a lot around workforce controls, but it's still not as good as we would want it to be. So we had to give limited assurance around that, the grip and control on there, the vacancy panels, the frequency, the rigor around it, the involvement of the divisions in this. But we have a huge financial challenge. Some of this goes down to the fact that whilst we've massively reduced the use of agency, both NGH and KGH, we still use a significant amount of bank staff, and some of the problems over winter, financial problems, have been the number of bank staff used. Certainly, and we've had a review on our ED workforce, and some of that response actually means about increasing staffing, permanent staffing, that should reduce the reliance on bank staff. So that's particularly at NGH rather than KGH, but certainly there has been external review to get us to that situation. Other ones, we've already mentioned the EPR, the IPR. That was an issue that came up at the People Committee, and the final one I will mention is around the freedom to speak up. Action is being taken to change the way we provide freedom to speak up going forward. Staff have had concerns for a long time. There's certainly a lot of work and focus has gone on with this. There's individuals that have been leading on freedom to speak up at NGH and KGH in the recent past have certainly been doing their best, but staff are still concerned about speaking up, having confidence to speak up, and any possible implications of speaking up. So this is something that we've been listening, and there will be changes from the new year in how freedom to speak up is delivered. And I think it's something that we will come back to once that's started, to the governors, so that they can, particularly staff governors, but not exclusively staff governors, can understand how it will be working going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. Jane?
Yes, it's me again. Sorry, Trevor. Talking about the staff, I'm wondering now that the winter is practically over, hopefully. I wonder, and the implementation of the winter planning going earlier than usual, have you noticed any decrease in staff-related illnesses due to stress yet? Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. So 2 things. One is winter may not be as over as you think. The last few days at KGH, we have been on the highest level of, we're on Opal 4. The pressures in ED are actually bigger than they were at times when we had the flu crisis. So the pressure is still really on. In terms of the sorry, I've just lost track. What was your second question, Jane?
Staff illnesses and
illnesses.
time
Yes,
off
sorry.
From that.
I don't know the exact breakdown in terms of stress, but we have seen an increase in staff illness. We have both at KGH and NGH actually had, for NHS, relatively low levels of sickness, but we've seen it creeping up to around 5%, which is not good. How much of that is stress? How much of that is flu and other particularly respiratory illnesses have been the problem this year? I don't know off the top of my head, but certainly it is something that we'll be reviewing, and when we see the results of the staff survey, I'm sure that will be something that will be triangulated with the staff survey results when they come out.
Thank you, Trevor. David?
Yeah, reading through the people report and the Chief People Officer's report on, I think it was the January meeting. I noticed a section there on culture and culture metrics. Culture is something that's often raised as a key issue for the Trust. And I was looking at the metrics: turnover, appraisal, statutory mandatory training, employee relations. They don't seem like culture metrics to me. They seem like symptom metrics on process. And I did a dig around. And if I compare what I'm reading with the literature on culture and all the rest of it, I don't see much of a correlation. So given the fundamental importance of it, what are we doing to actually manage this and actually monitor it?
Thank you, David. I can assure you that the culture receives a huge amount of focus and time, and it is, you're right, it is an issue for us. You know, the things that we need to do, we can't do unless we address culture as a priority. Within engagement service, within the science of engagement service, there are certain questions that are key questions in defining how strong your engagement score is and quantifying your engagement score. I agree with you. Some of the issues that you raise, the points that you raise, are not necessarily those. So we can come back to you in providing more information in terms of what are the key pointers and areas that do indicate how where our cultural issues are and how strong our engagement score is. We are working on a culture strategy, and that is that will be presented to the board. And again, I think that's something that we should be updating governors on. So we'll come back to you on exactly how we measure culture and what are the actions that we're taking to address areas of concern.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Trevor, back to you.
Sorry, Kath's got her hand up.
Thank you, Trevor.
Oh, sorry, Kath.
That's okay, no worries. Trevor, it's really, as a staff governor, it's really welcome news that there's going to be a full review of how the freedom to speak up is delivered. It will be very welcome from the staff, I know, but it kind of brings me on to a wider point about how and when we communicate these messages to begin socialising that we have actually heard what people are saying. Quite often as a member of staff, it's kind of ta-da, we've done it, rather than actually we've heard you, we're looking at it, we're doing it, and I think we're missing an opportunity to try and get people on board as we're ploughing through these things. So it's just an observation, really.
Thank you. I will take that back. I think Chris, Andrew, I think the next one's not me. I think Chris.
Are you not doing strategic transformation?
I was, but I thought I'd give everybody a break from my dulcet tones and let Chris come in.
Oh, right. That's very thoughtful of you, Trevor. Thank you. Chris.
Thank you, Trevor, and thank you, Andrew. So hello, everybody. Quality and Safety Committee. I think I've got a number of things I wanted to report to you, but some of them have been mentioned. But first of all, the Quality and Safety Committee, following an external review, has moved to meeting every other month. And that seems at the moment to be working. What happens in the intervening month is that the non-executive directors on the committee meet with the medical director and the chief nurse and have what we call a touch point meeting. This method of working for the committee will be reviewed in sort of July time, by which time we will have had 3 meetings and we will really understand how it is working. So that's the first thing. I was going to start with an item of really good news, and that was that ambulance handover, which is a really important quality marker, and that the availability of ambulances in the community rather than parked outside the emergency department is a quality aspect for the whole of Northamptonshire. The home birth service has already been covered. So several things that I'll mention from our report. The first is something that I think is really quite important, and that is the issue of referral protocols in that transition from caring for children to caring for adults. So children who move at the age of 16 to 18 from care for children into an adult practice, as it were, there can be major variations in the type of care provided and in the methods of care. And that we're not really very good at. In fact, not many places in the NHS are good at it. So that is undergoing a piece of work at the moment, an important piece of work. The next thing I wanted to mention was that at Kettering, the work on complaints into the organisation, which are a great quality marker, is under control and is in a better position than it has been for some time. But the themes of communication, education, culture, and by culture I mean what our staff say about the organisation as a place to work or as an organisation as a place to receive care remains further development. And one other issue is that occasionally small items of equipment are either not available or are not working. And that we're going to carry out some focus on over the next month or two. The other item I'd mention is that the immunology issue, and you will remember that this was an issue whereby immunology reports were not automatically pumped into the results, the headline results system for general practice, leading to, as it were, results being hidden for some months. That's all now being corrected, but in carrying out the correction, unfortunately, some results were addressed to the incorrect patient through their general practice. And that resulted from a technical issue with the computer system that reverted to a single number identifier rather than using at least 2, if not 3 identifiers for each patient. At the moment, and the harm review is going on, at the moment, no significant harms have been addressed, but that review will come to a conclusion very soon. And I think that's all I want to say, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Chris, can I just clarify? When you said significant harms have been addressed, is that addressed or
No,
identified?
I said no significant harms had been identified. I think I was meant to say no significant harms had been identified, but
yeah.
any minor harms have been addressed. I'm sorry,
Thank
Andrew.
you. No, that's fine. No, not at all. Thank you very much. Thanks for the very detailed, comprehensive update, Chris. Any questions for Chris? David.
Yeah, this is one that came up last week in discussion with somebody who was going through the admission process. They were on treatment which suppressed their immune system, and they were going in. They were saying that when they went into the hospital, the admission process actually took them through A&E, and they were actually sat in A&E for quite a period of time. I was just curious as to whether that's the most appropriate place for somebody whose immune system is weakened due to treatment. And I've spoken to a couple of people. They all said that's the process, but I wasn't aware of that. But it just seemed to me, because friends of mine who've been going through chemo and various other things, they've all tended to isolate themselves, and they've been told to keep themselves protected. Yeah, if they have to go in for a procedure, they are sort of treated with the general population, and there's nowhere. Now, I know there's a space issue, but I just thought I would raise it.
Okay, thank you, David. Thank you. Chris, are you able to respond to that?
I can't respond to and give you an answer, but what I can say is if it is a planned procedure, they should not be going through the emergency department. All that does is make the overcrowding worse. So I will look into that particular situation.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. We just need to move on to the Strategic Transformation Digital Committee. Trevor, we're tight on time, so I'm in your hands.
Thank you. Very briefly, in terms of the strategic, the only item there of note for, I would say, KGH is around the, we gave limited assurance on the clinical strategy, but that was really in a conversation with Hemant, the medical director, about actually how could we take it forward? How could we as a committee give additional support? And hence why at our next meeting we are doing a piece on population health, because what Hemant was saying was in terms of the cancer work stream that he needed more population health information to be able to target that work. And so the dialogue at the committee was about actually how can we improve the processes around the clinical strategy, having that engagement with public health and inform the work that we need to be doing around the clinical strategy. It was really about where we were. It's early days on rolling out clinical strategy, but it's certainly a key foundation for how we move forward for not just UHN, but UHN and UHL, and how we support the population going forward. I think that's. There's an NGH one briefly, which I'll just. It's the realism. The rollout of the EPR will be in the summer for NGH. That means that the whole of the East Midlands virtually will be on the same clinical system. Now, KGH, because where we are on the contract, isn't there, but that's something we will be learning lessons at KGH when we come a couple of years' time to be looking at rolling out replacement for what we've got at the moment and learning the lessons for timing, etc., from what we're doing at NGH.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. And as far as the group clinical strategy is concerned, that's also on the agenda for the board this Friday for our board development session. So it's getting good airtime. Okay, thank you. As there are no questions, I would like to move on to Rashmi and the report from ICANN.
think Rashmi's had to leave the call, Andrew, so that is full information, and then we can refer any questions to Rashmi. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Fine, then we get to any other business. Do colleagues have any other business they'd like to raise? No, okay, there's one point that I would like to raise, and that's we're sad to report the death of Terry Spencer in December. Terry was a public governor for Wellingborough from 2024, stepping down at the October 25 elections. Obviously, we extend our deep condolences to Terry's family and friends. KGH was represented at Terry's funeral by Lindsay Alvis and Sue Broom. Okay, the next meeting of the governors will be on the 1st of April, and that's kind of meet the governors meeting with Laura and myself. And the next Council of Governors is on Wednesday, the 3rd of June, 10 to 12 via video conference. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time today and your contributions. I thought that was a very constructive meeting, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. Goodbye.